Hi, my name is Donna, and I'm originally from Florida. We're all familiar with you on the big screen. We've seen you on television, and now you're going back to the stage. What are the main differences, if any, in how you prepare for those productions, and which style is your favorite and why?
Oh, thanks, Donna. Donna, did you come dressed as Jonathan Pine yesterday?
Yes, I did.
Okay, cool. Great outfit, by the way. I suppose I prepare in much the same way for everything, which is to just try and be as ready to play as possible. The most enjoyable part of acting is acting with other people, with other actors, and playing in the space between you and inventing something alive and new every time. And so before I get to that point, I like to have done all the sort of desk work and the head work and reading and thinking and researching. And so that's what I'm doing at the moment, really. And people often ask about the difference between theatre and film, or film and TV. And I think the main difference for me, which isn't often thought about, is that when you're in the theatre, I'll be doing Betrayal for 12 weeks, and it will never be the same twice. And it shouldn't be, because the audience is different, and they bring a different energy, and the audience is part of the event. So the energy they bring is part of what happens in a way. Because we're all molecules in the same building. And on stage, you get to constantly ask a question. Every night, you try and find a new truth about the piece. And on film, you have about 2 hours to find the truth of a scene, and then it's locked forever. And in one way, it's a relief, because if you think you got there, it's immortalized in a way. But if you do a good performance on stage, it's gone by midnight. And then you have to get up in the morning and do it all again, and it will never be the same. And I love that sort of cycle of investigation. I think that's what's really interesting.
Hi, my name is Roxanne, and I'm from California. And my question is that Loki is a very complex character, and he does things that the audience may love, and then he does things that the audience won't love as much. So I wanted to know that at what point in Loki's story arc do you believe that, did you think that maybe the audience could be rooting for this character more than like hating on him?
I think that varies from audience member to audience member. I think, again, it goes back to that first film. He finds out too late that he was adopted, and that his real father was his father's mortal sworn enemy. And that is incredibly emotionally destabilizing. And it is a great scene to play. And I think people, for that reason, always understand, Loki is a troubled soul, and that he is evacuating all his pain onto other people. But they understand where the pain comes from. So there's sort of, there's an empathy there. But plenty of people stop me in the street and say, Loki's a bad guy, So, he does some terrible things. I think that first film really humanizes him. And I think makes the rest of the journey interesting, because it makes you always think he could be pulled back, he could be redeemed. And in my opinion, he is redeemed in Infinity War.
All right.
Hi, my name's Laurie from New York. And I'm wondering, after the play Betrayal finishes in London, are you planning to take that anywhere else in the world?
It's too early to tell, I think. We have to get the show on the road. Well, not on the road, but the show on in London first. And then who knows? I don't know, but thanks for asking.
You'd have an audience.
Hi, my name is Sydney Burns, and I'm from Phoenix, Arizona here. And I want to start off by saying you really inspire me, and you're amazing, and I love that. Thank you for doing that. My emotional support, because socialization. And my question for you is, how has your love of Shakespeare rubbed off on Loki, like in the dialect and his personality?
Well, Kevin Feige will freely admit, the president of Marvel Studios, that the reason he wanted Kenneth Branagh to direct the first one was that he saw Asgard as a kind of, initially, the drama of Asgard is a dynastic drama about kings and princes and fathers and sons. And of course, Shakespeare knew how to write those stories. And Kevin, like everybody else, knew Ken was a extraordinary Shakespearean and would bring a kind of gravitas to this world. And in first discussing those relationships between Odin and Thor and Loki with Sir Anthony Hopkins and Chris Hemsworth and Rene Russo as Frigga, we all talked about these kind of Shakespearean relationships. So I've never thought of it as if I'm doing a dialect or anything, but it was more that perhaps because of taking our lead from Kenneth Branagh and Anthony Hopkins, that there was a classical archetype, a classical silhouette in some way, which was a good place to start. And then actually we've been quite playful with it, I think. And there are moments when that really relaxes and becomes much more contemporary, and that's when it can get quite funny, I think. Especially in more recent films like Ragnarok and Infinity War. So I think the tension in that is quite good. That sometimes, especially with Loki, there's a bit of pomposity, and then it's undercut by a Hulk smash or something like that, or get help.
Okay, next question.
Hi, Mr. Dawson. First of all, I love you so much. And my name is Deng Jingyi. I'm from Chicago. I don't know if you remember, but I asked a question in Chicago Comic-Con last October too. And today my question is, what if one day you wake up and you see Loki, who is wearing his suit, his hammer, and holding his tiny knife he used to stab his brother? He's standing right in front of you. Like, what would happen? Like, could you imagine what conversation would you have, and are you going to take him to a tour in this universe?
So Loki comes to visit.
I think I'd have to ask myself if I was dreaming, hit myself in the head, shake myself awake. My goodness. I mean, I just sort of say, I'm sorry, first of all. Whoever you are, I did my best, It was based on all these stories that people have written down for 2,000 years. I was just going off what other people said about you. Do you fancy a coffee? Tea?
I mean, what else could you do at that point?
Yeah, breakfast? Was it a long trip? Can I make you some eggs? I don't know.
Next question.
Hi, Tom. My name is Christy, and I'm from San Diego. I'm a huge fan of Pinter's work, and I'm sorry to hear that you and Charlie haven't played squash in years, although I do hear it's because you're too good at it.
Oh.
So the beauty of betrayal is in that so much of the emotional impact comes not from the script itself, but from the actors' interpretations and vulnerability during delivery, as well as their ability to convey that to every seat in the house. My question is, how do you feel that the demands and approach specifically required for this show may differ from your theatrical work in the past?
Really good question. I'm not sure because I haven't done it yet, but I think in approaching it, most recently I've been doing Shakespeare's plays on stage, and the nature of the verse is that the actor has to externalize everything. Everything is on the surface, and so emotions have to be very legible. And I think with Harold Pinter, the emotions are internalized in a very different way, so the echo is deeper, sort of underneath the surface. And I think that will be the primary difference. But I don't know, and I'm looking forward to finding out.
So these are the words that I am sure everyone in line is going to be very upset to hear. This is our last question.
Hello, Tom. I'm Rhea. I'm from Arizona. And first of all, I want to thank you so much for being here. It means so much to so many people. It's really awesome of you. Thank you. My question is, in your audition for Marvel, you originally went for the role of Thor. What was your experience with that? And what was your reaction to your casting?
You know, I so enjoyed the whole process because really at that point I'd never advanced as far in an audition process for a film of this scale. You know, all actors will tell you, like when the beginning of your acting life, it's rejection after rejection after rejection, and it's never personal. It just is par for the course in a way, but it feels personal. But I suddenly knew that I was getting close to something. And Kevin Feige, I'd met him, and he said he'd seen my audition tape, and he'd also seen me do some theatre work in London. I thought, well, there are people here who actually know what I'm capable of, and if I don't get this, it'll be me who's screwed it up. And I just enjoyed it so much. The screen tests were really fun, and I had to try and get in a different shape, which I really enjoyed. And eventually I started, as I was auditioning, because it took about 4 months, this process. And so there was a lot of waiting and not being quite sure if it was going to happen. But the story started to emerge that there were these two brothers, and that both those roles were really interesting. And I had heard they weren't screen testing anyone for Loki, which I thought was really curious, because I didn't know, there's all these guys, these names in the hat, people understand who they were now. But there was all these candidates for Thor, but then nobody was cast as Loki, and then suddenly they made, I think, Kevin Feige and Kenneth Branagh, they made the decision on the same day. And they called Chris and they called me. And I was just so excited because by then I'd read the comics, I understood the story, and I could see what a great character he was. And both Kevin and Ken said, we think this is the right part for you. And I trusted them. And I'm sitting here today, and it's 10 years later.
Well, I want to personally thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Angelique. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
And so if we can get everyone to stand up for me and get all that excitement that you just had, we're going to take a picture.